if you have, like, you sit down and really formulate, like, why is this important? Why am I doing this? And then it's just like every day, how am I working towards that? Even if it's as simple as going to the grocery store, but this time I'm not going to buy the fun size M&Ms, because if I don't buy them, I'm not going to fall back and have them. Or if it's, I'm going to walk that 10 minutes a day or 2 minutes a day, whatever it is. Having a formidable reason why why you're committing to the change and why you're committing to that lifestyle is paramount.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome back, everyone, to another experience of Bindlism, a philosophy to a self-sufficient lifestyle. Today, we'd like to introduce you all to Ed Teneyck. He's a nutritionist, Ironman ultra runner, duathlete for Team USA, and founder of Ultimate Health in Syracuse, New York. First and foremost, above all else, he's a loving husband and father. His ultimate drive in life is to live a healthy and nutritious lifestyle so that he can continue to be a provider and role model for his family. He's committed to making a positive influence on the Syracuse community by inspiring, educating, and coaching people to make healthier choices in life. Ed is a man of action that lives by example and practices what he teaches. The conversation we had today was insightful and an eye-opening perspective into human behavior. We learned more about how to live a nutritious lifestyle and what it would take for someone to flip the switch and commit to make the change. Ed's wealth of knowledge and honest intentions provide us with truthful perspective into his world of health and fitness. We're thankful to have had this opportunity to speak with him today and very excited to be able to share it with all of you. We enter the mind of Ed Teneyck. So to start off, we'll introduce yourself.
All right, so Ed Teneyck, obviously. So I own Ultimate Health and Performance. It's a nutrition business. Well, that's what it originally started as.
Out of Syracuse?
Yep, we're right over in Fayetteville.
Okay.
And, I was working at CrossFit Syracuse for a while. So I've been a trainer, the nutrition side of things as well. That's kind of how I got into nutrition was from training. And
What kind of training?
personal training.
Okay.
So,
like athletic trainer kind of thing?
Yep. CrossFit, coaching CrossFit classes, coaching one-on-one clients, things of that nature. Trying to, give everybody the best, at the end of the day, the best experience, help them live their best life, which kind of led me down the path of nutrition. I found that
kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and I found that a lot of people, as much as they were doing in the gym, they weren't doing outside of the gym. And there was a lot of questions I had that were unanswered. So I started, looking more and more into it and decided it was time to, invest a significantly more amount of time into that end of it. So I've had Ultimate Health and Performance for about 1 year and 4 months. And, we're continually growing and it continually, for me, evolves. So so I do that, and then I'm an endurance athlete by nature. So I do a lot of running races, triathlon. I've done a couple of Ironmans. I did a lot of duathlon, which is a run, bike, run format. So that's kind of like a lot of my background. And I kind of got into all this because I was a college kid that was 235 pounds from just partying way too hard, like a lot of college kids, and decided I wanted to get back to where I felt best, and that's where I got into training. And
Were you training before college?
I was a Division I baseball player.
Oh, okay.
So I played baseball all the way through high school into college, and that's really that was at the time my peak fitness was when I went to school. Then I got hurt. And, as a scholarship athlete,
Once you hurt, you're out, kinda.
I was done, and I said, all right, well,
Wow.
I'm going to just party and enjoy college. And,
Is that where you like packed on the pounds?
Oh yeah,
kinda?
yeah. I mean that I gained a bunch of weight there, and then it, the next 3-4 years probably just continued. When I came home, we have a great bar scene here, which is a little too good.
Did you go to SU?
No, I went to SUNY Albany.
Oh, okay.
Which
cool.
we had there was a very big bar scene there as well. So it was definitely a recipe for disaster. So, fast forward, I ended up leaving the area with my wife. We moved to Virginia because I knew I needed a fresh start. I needed to start everything all over again. So we moved down there, and then I just stopped partying, cold turkey, stopped drinking, everything.
Went like pretty straight edge after that.
Yeah. I mean, just was, decided that enough was enough, and, I just needed to get away from, the people that I still consider friends back here to start over and start cleaning up,
Fresh start.
Yeah, and it worked for me. That's where I got into riding, which sounds strange, riding bikes. I mean, I grew up riding a bike, but started riding mountain bikes all the time, and noticed, I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this stuff. I should do it more, and I should compete. So, that kind of sparked everything. And then when we'd come home, everybody was like, oh, let's go out. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I got other things I'm focused on. So, fast forward 10 years, I'm,
From college, 10 years?
Yeah, well, no, from college. I guess I graduated, I left Albany in 2000. So, I was at my heaviest probably at 235 in 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. So what are we, 11 years, 12 11. Years out? Yeah. Something like that. So, about 80 pounds later, and, whole world of, whole world different. So, yeah, it's, Ultimate Health and Performance was kind of a culmination of the last 15 years of my life. And
that journey that you went through.
Yeah. And if I can have a positive impact with, helping people navigate the storm of nutrition information and misinformation out there, then, I'm doing what I believe is a good job. And that's really the premise behind it is, I always use the hashtag eat, move, live, because I want people to eat well, move well, and live well. And
3 principles.
Right. There are 3 principles in, you can eat well, but if you don't do any type of movement, whether it's physical activity or anything, you're never going to live your best life. You're always leaving something out on the table. And I feel that if you move all the time, I mean, how many people do you know that go to the gym that don't look like they've stepped foot in a gym because they eat so poorly? So I use the 3 principles of eat, move, live, because, a lot of people move really well, but they don't eat well. So again, they're not living optimally. And from my standpoint, I look at it as I want to provide the best overall knowledge to be able to help people, not only with, what should I eat, but the whys behind it, and to navigate,
get a little bit deeper into it.
Get a little bit deeper into it. Look at it more also from the standpoint of like, okay, if people, I think people should always ask the questions why. Like, you should never just do something. You should, okay, well, why do you want me to do this? And you should truly have that understanding. And, so one of the other things that I believe is, with Ultimate Health is, in order to get to that point where you're living, your life fully optimized, or, your ultimate health, you have to understand your body, and you have to understand, like, these foods provide me with the proper nutrients to be able to fuel my everyday.
And that provides someone with the why?
And through working with them, I can help to provide them with that. There's always going to be some, you've got to look within you, but there's always going to be a level of, I can explain, okay, I want you eating these foods and these timings because this is the response that your body should have. And then when we see that, then it's like, okay, so, you know, you're, you know, like I was talking to a client today who's in her mid-50s, premenopausal, beginning of menopause. So she's talking about how, you know, I used to have hot flashes all the time. Obviously, as a guy, I have no idea what that's like. But I know we can modulate some of the foods in your diet, clean it up a little bit, make some changes. And now she has, you know, very infrequent, maybe like once a month she'll have a hot flash. And she's like, the only thing we've done is we've changed my food.
Not even getting into the exercise part of it.
Right. She works out 4 days a week.
Oh,
so,
does.
You know, literally the only thing we changed, we didn't even change the amount of calories she was consuming, just where those were coming from. And, you know, now she's not having hot flashes. And she's like, it's just incredible.
What was she eating? What did she change to?
She was, I mean, you know.
Can we talk about it
Yes.
confidentially? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we can talk about that. You know, she was eating a very quote unquote clean diet. She was, you know, doing more of like a paleo style. And I was like, well, it's about finding that proper balance for your body of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And she was consuming a very high fat, moderately low carbohydrate, moderate protein diet. And not quite keto, but, you know, still more along the lines of like a paleo style diet. And once we added some, you know, grain-free, starchy options back into her diet, all of a sudden she's, you know, 7 pounds down of only body fat, doesn't have hot flashes anymore. And, you know, for someone who's in their 50s that has a body fat percentage in the, you know, about 22%, I mean, she looks amazing. And she looked amazing before, but now it's, you know, she's sitting there with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more knowledge, in feeling 100 times better. So it's like, well, you know,
that's all it took.
All it took was just, you know, minor tweaks here and there. And a lot of times that's all it is. Sometimes, you know, we get into, you know, longer term issues, or, you know, trying to reverse diabetes is, you know, going to take a little bit longer. But, you know, the idea behind starting it, you know, the company was really, I want to be able to provide as much education on, you know, whether it's something as simple as like, you know, there's so many different types of fad diets out there now, like what one's best for me, what one, you know, why should I do this one or why shouldn't I?
And there's so much controversy.
Yeah, I mean, a study just came out 3 days ago saying that now eggs are bad for you again. And I'm like, really?
I was just researching about coffee being good or bad.
Oh my God.
Like, what's the answer?
You know, coffee is technically a diuretic.
So
However,
bad?
No.
Okay.
I think coffee is fine. And like even my thoughts on that is it's like anything within reason. Anything can be good within reason and within moderation. You know, you see people who will consume, you know, 7, you know, of those massive Starbucks mugs of coffee a day, and it's like, that's bad. Mm-hmm. If you have, you know, a 6 or 8 ounce cup in the morning, another one in the early afternoon, not super bad. You know, the benefits of green tea or even like a caffeinated black tea are going to be that it's more of a time release on the caffeine. It's a slower release of the caffeine, so you don't have as much of a crash. There's a ton of antioxidant properties of coffee. You know, so and coffee is technically a diuretic, but the amount of, you know, caffeine in a normal cup of coffee doesn't cause that much of a diuretic effect as to where you'd become dehydrated. So, you know, if you're drinking...
And then you can pair that up with water.
Right. You know, if you're, you know, so again, you're finding that balance.
So moderation is key.
Moderation is key. You know, I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you have an Oreo, guess what? It's just an Oreo.
Not the end of the world.
I mean, if you, you know, if you have an organic Oreo or a gluten-free Oreo, it's still an Oreo. It just doesn't have gluten in it, but it's still an Oreo. It's the same as a regular Oreo. Are there better options out there? Sure. But if that prevents you from ending up in this like downward spiral, then you know what? That one Oreo was worth it then. You know, so it's about creating a sustainable life and being very conscious about what you're doing when it comes to food.
What is sustainable for you?
I always refer to sustainable as, living a very comfortable, fulfilled life and not leaving anything out on the table. Like if in, let's say 30 years from now, that would put me at, I don't know, 70, almost 70, somewhere around there. I'd be 69. So let's say that I'm 88, which is like the median age of an adult male now. And I'm on my deathbed. I want to look back and be like, you know what? I had a ton of fun. I don't want to look back and be like, if I just, in my 30s, when I thought about it, I should have started eating better and I would have had a better life. And I want people to think, like, because we think so focused on what tomorrow is going to bring.
Short-term gain.
We're always thinking like, oh, what's tomorrow? And it's like, what's 5 years? Like, where are you going to be in 5 years? I want to know that in 5 years, I'm taking steps now in my health so that in 5 years from now, I'm even healthier. Which seems, like some people who know me might be like, that's like, how is that possible? Mm-hmm. But 5 years ago from today, I want to know that I'm healthier now than I was then. And then in 5 years, so what do you consider healthy? I mean, you can, that's super subjective. But I want to know that when I'm, let's say 6 years, because then when I'm 45, that I am living the best years of my life as a 45-year-old man. Like, I don't want to be, crippled in a wheelchair or using a walker or a cane, So that's what I define as healthy. Like living my life optimally, living, the best version of what I can do given, the circumstances,
And you also enjoy the lifestyle that you're living right now?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost like if you're healthy, then you're able to do what you love, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, conversely, if you're just, because nutrition, 60% of inflammation starts in the gut. And if you're always run down and always tired and always worn out, it's worth looking into, like, man, I should make some changes to my diet. Because what do you have to lose? Like, obviously, like, who wants to live in a constant state of fatigue? Like, truly, like, if you were to poll everybody and say, if you could quit your job tomorrow, what's the one thing you do? They'd probably say sleep in. And it's like, well, then why don't you stop watching that TV show at 10 o'clock and go to bed at 9 o'clock?
It's like reevaluate your life a little. And see what's
take
important.
Take a step back and look and kind of look at it and say, like, what do you have to lose at that point? Because the life you're living now kind of sucks, doesn't it? Like, are you super happy with the fact that you are too tired to run around with your kids or play with your kids or do things that you see other people doing on social media? Like, you could do them. Mm-hmm. But it's about making lifestyle and priority changes.
There's a lot of different components that go into this.
Yeah.
Because you're looking through this from the lens of 5 years. Yeah. Whereas someone you were talking about, like, let's say they're not making the changes. They might be looking at just the changes for tomorrow. Yeah. And they might not understand the time time and effort it takes to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of, I think that's part of our process with life, is that you really have to always look. I mean, yeah, you should know what tomorrow looks like, but tomorrow is just one of the, it's just like when you're walking in the sand, your footsteps behind you disappear. The path has not been set for you walking forward, but you take the next step because you know that you need to get across the beach. And so you see,
see what's to come.
See what's ahead, but and it's constantly changing. And what happens behind you is always being removed. Mm-hmm. So you can't, we use events from our past and our history to help mold us into the, help mold the decisions we're going to make going forward. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, you don't walk on the beach with your head down looking at your feet. You look, okay, where am I going? I got to go to that spot over there. And you have a goal. If you take that with life and you say, okay, well, where do I want to be in 5 years? Like most people would struggle to answer that. If you said, I want, think about it for 10 seconds, where you want to be in 5 years, they'd have to sit there and they would use all 10 seconds to try to come up with
definitely.
it. Where, I mean, you should know. Like how, what are you doing today that's going to help you in 5 years? Well, I'm getting up and going to work. But do you like getting up and going to this job? Or, is this just part of a daily routine, same as brushing your teeth? And I want people to start to look at more aspects of, like this is helping me to get to that next spot.
Have you always been that way?
No.
Visionary, thinking ahead?
No. I was very short-sighted, which is probably how I got to. I think that led to, because I left SUNY Albany after I got hurt, and then I just took a bunch of years off because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I've never thought 5 years ahead.
Even in college, it was short term.
Yeah, even
it's like party.
Yeah, even SUNY Albany was that's all. I didn't go to school there to go to school. I went there because it was a stepping stone for me with baseball.
Oh, okay.
So that's how short-sighted it was. And I had teachers and mentors that were like, that's a horrible reason to go to a school. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a pro baseball player.
Oh, well, you were thinking far.
Yeah, not logically, but in one regard.
It's like over idealistic. Yeah.
What 17-year-old that's, I was one of the best in the state for 2-3 years. And so you're thinking like, we had pro scouts come to a lot of my baseball games. So the thought was there, and, wasn't completely logical, but, so then when, and then when I got injured, most people would be like, okay, so what do I got to do to get back? And I was just like, screw it, I'm done. Yeah. And, so again, not thinking very far in advance. I think when I started my weight loss, it was because I wanted to be a personal trainer. And I knew that I couldn't be a personal trainer and be 70 pounds overweight. Because how could I tell you to lose 30 pounds when I need to lose 50?
Why listen to you?
Right. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do type of thing. So, but again, I wasn't thinking 5 years down the road. I had no idea what 5 years would bring. So
timelining this, when was that turning point?
I would say that really started to take shape probably like 2014. When I really started, I really started to look into, probably 2013. When we moved back up here in 2010, I started going to school. I finished undergrad at Cortland for my bachelor's in exercise science. And I really wanted to get into...
Wait, you transferred?
Yeah, so I transferred all of my credits in...
11, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, probably 11 or 12.
Any time in between?
Yeah, I'd go to like a couple. I'd take like a couple of classes here and there. Okay. And somewhere in there, I got an associate's in marketing, and so I always joke around like I've been going to school since 2000, like on and off. And my wife has told me that I'm done.
Well, you're constantly learning.
Well, and that's my thing.
In what way, though?
Right. And I learned. When I started getting my degree in exercise science, I really wanted to do the research end of it, because that's around when I started to ask a lot of the questions of like, okay, it's cool that we're doing this, but I want to know why. And I want to know how, if we modulate this, how will the body respond? And I kept finding out that, through like the biochemistry side of things, that food played a huge role in that. So then I started looking for, okay, well, maybe I'll get a graduate degree in nutrition. And then that's when I fell into like functional medicine and, more of a holistic approach.
What is functional medicine?
So that's more of like the holistic medicine, utilizing, nutrition, massage therapy, chiropractic adjustments, non-pharmaceutical when you're able to, approaches to treating, different types of
More
issues.
of like the lifestyle and
Living,
superfoods, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Superfoods, living the lifestyle, not overdoing any one thing, like not, being super excessive with, running only, but doing a little bit of running, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of meditation, like having a very varied palate, so to speak, and just living, like being within yourself, like not just pumping your body full of antibiotics and pharmaceutical medications to treat, I have hypertension, so I take a pill for my hypertension, but one of the side effects of that pill is that I get chronic dry mouth, so I take a pill for that, and next thing you have, this drug cascade, where you're on 5 different pharmaceutical medications, and it's like, and your diet's still shit. So maybe if we change your diet, you wouldn't have needed any of those pills. So.
And you might see those changes quick.
Right.
Like, for instance, that one mid-50s
lady. So, and that's the thing, is you might see them quick. The problem is most people want to see it yesterday. So, a big component is educating them. And it's like, that I think is really when I started looking at the functional medicine stuff, is where I started to realize you can't make these changes overnight. You see the TV shows like Biggest Loser, and it's 12 weeks and they lose 100 pounds. And it's like, well, they live on a ranch in a controlled environment. You have a 50-hour-a-week job, 2 kids, a husband, and, an environment around you that doesn't condone that type of lifestyle.
You think that's what's so hard about people switching over to this kind of lifestyle?
I think one of the, short answer would be yes. I think that that's one of the challenges a lot of people face. I think the other challenge a lot of people face is that fried food tastes better a lot of times when you've been eating it over and over again, and sugar-laden food is going to taste, a piece of milk chocolate is going to taste better than a strawberry for a lot of people, and a cake and a dessert, but that's what they're supposed to taste better, because that's how they were, confection, sugar,
too.
Right? You're going to have a very strong dopamine response. Well, if any drug gets you high, you're going to want more of it. Mm-hmm. If you if you ate a piece of cake and it made you throw up as soon as you ate it, you'd probably never even consider eating another piece of cake. But it doesn't give you that effect. It gives you the effect of like, oh, thank you. You should have more.
It's interesting that you compare it to drugs.
I think sugar is a drug. I said this, I've said this before, and I get into discussions with it all the time with friends in the medical field. I would like to see sugar as a Scheduled 1 narcotic, because it is what is sugar in processed food is what has caused our society to have
debilitating
childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, an epidemic rate, just adult obesity and adult diabetes. I think it's the last 2 years, it's either the last 2 or the last 3 years, our expected age has started to decline. So we have all of these amazing pharmaceutical, and I'm using air quotes, and amazing advances, yet people are dying off at an earlier age, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, other than, but then you look and it's like, if you name a food, it probably has added sugar. And, so yeah, I'm very against, sugar, as added sugar. And I've said it before, and I'll always say it. I think it should be a Schedule 1 narcotic, because it's addicting. You see someone eat something that has sugar in it, they don't have the one bite and say, that was good. They have a second, a third, a fifth, a seventh, or if they drink a soda.
It's addicting.
Yeah. I do. I think it's horrible, but.
So, you're telling us a little bit about like the beliefs you have
Yeah.
What's it like, a day of Ed? Your diet.
My diet?
Yeah.
Oh.
What's your kind
I
of
wake up,
routine
I
like?
have cake, and then
Just to give people context.
yeah.
Or
So
me context.
my breakfast is pretty consistent. It'll vary between like 3 different items. We have free range chickens at our house.
Oh, wow.
So I'll either have, 3 or 4 eggs. And then usually so I'll have, 3 or 4 eggs, some sort of like starchy, whether it's oatmeal, it could be oatmeal, a couple slices of bread, and then usually some kind of fruit.
Before we go on, I want to question that because you mentioned it before with the lady that you're
Yep.
talking about. Starchy as in like non-whole grain kind of
Nope.
grains?
So if we look at carbohydrates, we can break carbs down into, we have like starchy, just starches. So we have, like rice, white bread, wheat bread, all, those type pasta, those type of starches.
Okay.
Then you can have starchy vegetables like your potatoes, sweet potatoes, things like that, squashes.
So starch is just another name for carb?
Yep. So these all fall under carbohydrates. So we have, again, we'll have like under carbohydrates, we have regular starches, which are a form of carbohydrates. And that can be any of your like white breads or your whole grain breads, bagels, things like that will fall into, like a regular starch. Cereals. And then you have starchy vegetables, which would be your sweet potato, your yam, regular potato products, some squashes. Those would be like a starchier vegetable relative to regular vegetables, such as like broccoli, kale, spinach, asparagus, beets kind of fall in between, carrots, things like that are more of like a non-starchy vegetable. And then you have fruit, which is all of those are classified as carbohydrates.
Really?
Yeah, so you can break your carbohydrates down. So, into the world of tangent would be into the world of misinformation. It's like, oh, well, if you do the keto diet, you don't eat any carbs. And it's like, well,
That eliminates half your diet.
you just eliminated, if
More
you
than
say
half.
that, which is wrong information, then you just eliminated fruits, vegetables, starchy vegetables, and starches. A lot of people that are ketogenic still eat a high amount of vegetables. They just don't eat starchy vegetables because there's less carbohydrates per gram than a starchy vegetable. An example would be, like a cup of rice is going to be around 45 grams of carbohydrates. A cup of broccoli is about 5.
Whoa.
So you can get a lot more broccoli for your buck than you can rice. But that's a lot of times where people are consuming, not that they're consuming like poor nutritional choices, they're just consuming the wrong amounts of what can be good nutritional sources. Rice is not a bad thing. If you have 3 cups of rice a day, that's a bad thing. It goes back to our moderation. So part of what I do is I help people build the best balance possible of those, so then they can see, aha, I'm only supposed to have half a cup of rice at this meal and 2 cups of broccoli. So we play, I play around with those to teach them, like, again, going back to the why, this is why you should do it, because if we look at 2 cups of broccoli as 10 grams of carbohydrates versus half a cup of rice, which is going to be about 30, maybe a little bit less, all of a sudden you start to see, there's a number associated with everything. So back to my breakfast, it'll vary between, I try to do a fruit of some sort, depending on if there's anything that's in season. We'll do blueberries, strawberries, and then a couple pieces of toast, some eggs. That'll be like one option that we do. We make, we'll make pancakes. Like
Will, as in your family?
Yes, me and my wife. My kids, they'll eat, whatever they eat.
Right.
They do like the kid yogurts and stuff, They're like 3.5 and almost 2. So they're
Just eat what's available.
Whatever
they
I can get
like.
them to eat at this point. So another thing that I do is I do P28 bagel, which is a high protein bagel with just a little bit of almond butter and maybe some sliced up banana. Or the other option that I do is 8 ounces of Greek yogurt with 2/3 of a cup of granola. And, that's one of those 3 things happens, I would say 6 out of 7 days a week, 300 days a year. I mean, I'm very consistent, and a lot of it just comes down to, I don't necessarily, I obviously care what food tastes like, but more importantly, I look at it as just, this is something that I need to have in order to be able to fuel what I need to do. And if it tastes really good, that's a bonus. If it tastes okay, well, it's just food. It doesn't have to be designer. It just has to be, it can be as simple as possible. And, like when I do a P28 bagel, it's a bagel toasted with a little bit of almond butter, maybe a banana cut up on top. That's about as simple as you can get. But it's effective. It gives me all of the numbers that I need. So it works.
Basically, it boils down to eat natural.
Yeah.
Like, try to get to the root of the source.
Yeah.
How do I explain that?
Eat real food.
Eat real food, yeah. Not all the processed, sugary, refined stuff.
Yep. Yeah. The more real food you can consume on a daily basis, typically you're going to find that you feel better, you move better, you're going to live better. And if you're doing, again, like if I go back to my eat, move, live, if you're eating well, you're moving well, odds are you're going to be living pretty well. Like, it's going to be really hard to not live well. I sit down all the time and I talk with people about, like, okay, well, what's going on outside, because stress plays a major role, in people's lives. So if we can eliminate food being a stressor, now, even if we make that 1% change, and if you can make enough 1% changes, all of a sudden, now you've got this awesome life that you're living, and it doesn't have to be daily, but it's, make a 1% improvement. Go to bed 1% earlier. Do that after a year, you might be going to bed 20 minutes earlier. You're getting an extra 20 minutes of sleep a day. And what have you done? You've made one minor change. Move for 1% more. Over time, that adds up. So helping people to realize, 1, that they do have time, 2, that they can, like, literally, I can help anybody if they're willing to be helped. And that is, like you asked earlier,
It's like a substance abuse.
yeah. You have to be wanting to change. Like, a friend of mine asks me all the time, she wants to start nutrition coaching. And I said, are you ready to change? And she's like, I think so. And I'm like, you're not ready. I want to help you, but I know that you're going to half-ass this and you're not going to fully commit. And for you to be successful, I need to know that you're not, I think so. I need to know that you're like, hell yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this. Because it's going to take, because the day that you have a bad day at work is the day that you're going to turn to whatever food you were using as a comfort. We call things comfort foods. Well, what are comfort foods? Foods with sugar because it makes you feel good. Okay, well, there we go. Would you ever turn to cocaine because it makes you feel good? Like, it's the same thing. Right. But that's why I say it's scheduled one. It should be a scheduled one. Because it really does, people turn to it as an escape.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, that's my breakfast every day. I typically will work out in the morning. Typically we'll have some sort of snack mid-morning. Usually I like to do like a yogurt and granola.
So try to keep a constant, steady like intake of food.
Yep. So I like to keep a little bit of food going in throughout the day. That way I never have like massive meals. And I've found with myself and with a lot of my clients, you know, as long as their schedule permits it, that you typically will have, you're never starving, you're never stuffed. And I really like that because when you're, you know, again, you're
No excess.
right. You're you know, everything is targeted to be a specific amount. So if you know, okay, this is how many grams of carbs I need for breakfast, you know, for my breakfast and for my lunch and for my dinner and my snacks, and then you just kind of break it up. And then you eat it when it's time. And then you're never, again, if you're never starving, then, you know, you never overeat. And then you never fall into that trap of, oh, I'm so hungry, I just got to get
Comfort
something. And, you know, and that's when you break again. So, you know, trying to provide the framework like that. So yeah, usually I'll do a breakfast, a snack, a lunch, a snack, a dinner. And then depending on, you know, what time I eat dinner, I may or may not do an evening snack, but usually I don't. Because usually it's dinner and then it's bathe the kids and lay down with them and read them stories.
You usually don't eat dinner?
No, I'll eat dinner, but I won't have a after dinner snack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, and that's, you know, that's food on a daily basis. My wife and I, she's been doing more of the cooking lately just because I've been working later in the day. So
With the business? That's a business, right?
Yep. So between being in my office or being I'm finishing up, I'm still there. I'm at CrossFit Syracuse. I'm there till the end of this week, and then I'm 100% out of there. So
is that with the personal training?
Yep, and that's with the training. I was doing all of the nutrition over there as well. So, you know, helping a lot of people out. But yeah, I mean, just, you know, so we'll split meal prep and, you know, cooking. My wife is definitely not as much into it. Like, she likes the healthy foods, but for her, it's more of it's got to taste good kind of thing. So she's always on Pinterest trying to find new recipes to try, and then I have to look at them and
tasty but healthy.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and then I have to find a way to make them healthier, and you know,
okay.
so we kind of play around with it, and then we'll find some. Whenever I find like a really good recipe that's healthy, you know, I'm always like I'm collecting them in a recipe book, and then, you know, send it out to the guys at Fiverr, and then I send it out to my clients to try to, if I can continue to feed you with knowledge that's good, and you're like, wow, I tried that recipe, it was amazing. Well, now you're eating real food, it tastes good, and you're just continually on your way to better health. So, you know, it's I guess you could say it's a strange way of paying it forward. So, yeah.
The neat thing about this is it's not only just changing what you do throughout the day. It's like going deeper and changing your mindset behind how you view certain things and changing behavior.
Yeah.
And you're saying that you never used to make these mindful decisions with your nutrition, as far as like in college and stuff like that went. Was there like a pivotal moment in your life where you're like, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it? Because you were saying with the the one girl that wanted to be a health nutrition coach, you're like, oh, she's not ready. But did you ever have that? Like, sorry, I'm getting personal, but
no, that's fine. I don't know. I've thought about that because most people don't know. Most people that know me up here, especially now, know me predominantly as like an athlete. They don't know, like I posted, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, you know, like my actual before photo when I was like 200 and some odd pounds. And, you know, most people were like, Jesus, that doesn't even look like you. And I've often thought about like, what was like was there a single catalyst behind, like, you got to get your shit together? You know, like you always hear about people will say like, I was diagnosed with diabetes and realized I had to make a change. none of that stuff happened for me. I think that really I was just so disappointed in myself in when I started looking into personal training, and I first I just bought the book and I said I'll read through it and see if it's even something I want to do. I had no idea. Like I didn't really know if that's what I wanted to do, but I knew what I was doing at the time wasn't good, you know. And there was a couple of times I remember before my wife and I got married that at the time I lived 3 miles from my parents. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to run to my parents' house. Because when I played baseball all the time, we used to have to do like a 7-mile long run. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I like died by my neighbor's house. And I'm like, okay, like this is embarrassing. And like people I know are driving by and I'm like, they see me walking down the road. And so I'm like, all right, I got to do something. And then, you know, I would probably say that, I don't know, maybe it was probably right around my wife's birthday one year, because she was like, I don't want you to go out with your friends tonight. And I was like, okay.
With drinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I won't. And then I went out. I think I ended up telling her about it. No, she found out another night that I was out drinking. So it was just one of those things where, but I think at that point I realized like, okay, I'm doing this way too much. And, you know, I didn't think about it from like a nutritional standpoint. I thought of it more from, I'm lying to at the time, we definitely weren't married, my girlfriend, on a pretty regular basis, that I'm not going out when I'm going out, and for what? You know, and then I was like, I've got to make a change. Well, how can I make a change? So I tried to just not associate myself with my friends. And I've got this personal training book that I've been kind of reading. So then I was talking to my wife, and I said, what do you say we move? Because we didn't have anything. Like we were, you know, our house we were renting. You know, she was a nurse at the time. I said, you know, we've talked about doing traveling nursing. And so let's move. Let's go somewhere.
How old were you at the time?
26.
Okay.
So it was like
before kids and everything.
Yeah, this was before we had kids. And she's like, well, I don't know, let's look into it. So we started researching it a little bit, and she goes, well, let's start somewhere close. And so we chose, you know, Northern Virginia, like the DC area. And I was like, well, we'll go down there. It's 3 months. If it sucks, we'll just come home. Like, no big deal. And we went down there, and after like a week, because we didn't know anybody, and then I found out one of my friends, actually the best man in our wedding, was like a mile down the road. Just random chance. And, you know, so I told him what I was going through. This whole like miniature epiphany of like, I'm, you know, to be frank, like a fat, worthless piece of shit is what in my mind I was thinking. And he's just like, you know, I'm all for it, man. Let's do it. So, you know, having him, you know, in my corner, and then, you know, my wife was just like, yeah, whatever, do what you want.
Just not alcohol.
Yeah, just not alcohol. You know, because I was funny, like I wouldn't drink by myself because that's just weird in my book. But then I would go out and I would lie to her about going out and go out for 4 hours. And
so it was more of like the social aspect of it?
Yeah, it was 100% social. So, you know, we stayed down there for 9 months, and I didn't come home. Partly because I just was afraid to come home because I didn't want to. I was doing so well, and I was like every day, you know, I started running. So I was like, well, I'm going to run to that tree, and then I'm going to run to that stop sign. And every day it got a little bit further, and I had no idea how long, you know, like how far I ran, you know, as far as mileage. But I just knew like I'm just going to go a little bit further. And, you know, when we came home, I had lost like 40 pounds. And all of my family members were all like, are you sick? Is something wrong? And I think that move, that decision was one of those like pivotal moments where I knew I needed to get away from the people I was around and I didn't have the willpower to do it on my own. I didn't have enough of a motivation here. And I just figured if I took myself out of that environment, then that would force that wouldn't force me, but it would give me like I no longer had an excuse. So that was probably the biggest, you know, I wouldn't say it was like a true epiphany of like, that's it, tomorrow it starts.
Because it was a
cold
culmination
turkey.
of all of the little
It was,
things.
yeah, it was a lot of little things that we kind of put in, my now wife and I put in place of, you know, let's do this. And, you know, again, it wasn't, you know, but that was, you know, from my journey into the beginnings of health. And then everything from there was just stepping stones since.
And it seems like you put yourself, like physically and mentally, like you took yourself out of this period of socializing with, you know, the partiers, and like physically placing you in some place new. And then you moved it to even like your career.
Yeah.
And is that where you started getting into the personal training? Yeah.
So, you know, that started that whole process, because again, going back to, you know, what I was saying, where I didn't think as a personal trainer, I could ever give someone fitness advice if I'm, you know, 50, 75 pounds overweight. So those were, you know, those kind of went hand in hand. And then I started doing some training down there. And then I just realized, like, really quickly, like, I had a lot of questions, like, you know, okay, I like this exercise, but what if we do this one instead? So that started to spark, you know, once I got into it, it was kind of like I was like, oh, this is where my mind really works. Like, asking, you know, continually asking the questions. And I want to know, you know, is doing this type of training really the most beneficial way to have this adaptation? Well, I don't know. How can we test that? Well, let's do it. Let's
experimental.
Let's experiment with people.
And yourself.
Yeah. You know, so I was experimenting with me. I was experimenting with, you know, some of my clients. I'd say, you know, I'm like, oh, let's, you know, we're gonna change up how we're doing your training. Still, obviously, front of mind, keeping it safe for them. But then kind of let's do this for 2-3 weeks. Let's see what kind of adaptation we have. Oh, that worked pretty cool. Let's try this. And then, you know, so then it always kind of progressed from there. And that's what eventually led me to go back to school to get my bachelor's in exercise science, was that I wanted to do it in a lab setting where I could control even more variables.
Okay. To get your bachelor's?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, you know, that, and then from there, that's when I kind of started getting into the nutrition side, because I was like, wow, there's a lot of this depends on your nutrition. So, you know, it was always, that's really when I started asking that question of like, okay, you know, well, if this, then, you know, what if we change this factor? And I still think about it like with nutrition. I'd love to like sit down with, you know, like one of my friends and I talk about it all the time. I want to get a collective group of diabetic clients and patients that are truly want to become type 2 diabetic free. Like, they want to reverse diabetes, and sit down with them and say, okay, this is an action plan that we're going to have going forward. But again, finding, you know, 10, 12 people who will, you know, who are going to be very diligent and stick to it and commit to it, that's, you know, that's always going to be that struggle. But doing it as like, I can provide you with, you know, the knowledge and the information, but are you ready to make that lifestyle change? And doing it with people who are diabetic, you know, even looking at, you know, differences between, you know, looking at people who fast versus don't fast, and, you know, always asking those questions of, you know, what is, because, you know, everybody always asks, and like, oh, what's the best diet out there? And it's like, whatever one works the best for your body and gives you the best results for your body is the best diet that's out there. Mm-hmm. For you, that might be keto. For me, that might be, you know, paleo. For someone else, it might be Mediterranean. For some, you know, there's so many variables and so many things to look at.
And that's the hard part about nutrition.
Yeah. And, you know, but again, when I meet with people and we start talking, I'm always asking, you know, I'm always asking questions, but I'm always wanting them to ask even more, so that it's like, I want you to leave my office after a 30-minute session with more knowledge than you walked in. And if we're doing that, because a lot of times, I mean, I talk to clients and it might not be 100% nutrition based or based on their meal plan. I might talk to them about ways to help them with breathing techniques to help them sleep a little bit better. And if they sleep a little bit better, then they're more likely to stick to their nutrition plan because they don't need sugar in the afternoon. You know, like just a lot of, again, if we go back to those like little 1% changes, a lot of those little changes can have a huge impact. And, you know, so I look outside of that lens a lot of times and kind of look in and say like, okay, well, what else can we do? What else can we modify or modulate to make your body perform even better without having to reinvent the whole wheel? Like if I can, you know, tell you to move and do yoga for 5 minutes a day, you know, who can't carve 5 minutes out of their day? But most people will be like, oh, I don't have time to go to a yoga class. And it's like, you could do that. You could do 5 minutes of breathing exercises laying on your back in bed. You're going to be in there anyway. You're going to breathe anyway. So why not do something that's going to help your body come down and relax and become parasympathetic and chill out.
And start small too. Just 5 minutes.
It's just 5 minutes. You know, if you want to, you know, a guy, an author, James Clear, wrote the book Atomic Habits. And he talks about if you are someone who's a non-exerciser and you want to start exercising, he goes, for the first week, every day, just put your running shoes by the door.
Gentle reminders.
Yeah. You know, because you got to walk by him to go out the door of like, oh, I got to go for a run. He goes, and then sit down and take your busiest week or busiest day and say, how much time do I have to commit to an activity? To the activity of running or walking. Let's use walking. And, you know, let's say that it's 2 minutes. He goes, so then every day at the, you know, for 2 minutes, you go for a walk. He goes, at the end of that 7 days, you know, you can know that for the last 7 days, I walked every day for 2 minutes. It's more than I did last week. Now, you do that for a couple of weeks. Now you've started to build it as a routine. Because now you know that I gotta get my walk in for 2 minutes. And then you up it 2 minutes. So now you're walking every day for 4 minutes. And then before you know it, you've adjusted your lifestyle around this new lifestyle that you've created, which is the exercise you. And instead of the person who said, I want to exercise, now you are the exerciser. And, you know, because again, we live in one of those worlds of, oh, I got to do it tomorrow. And it's like, how many people, like I know a ton of people being in the endurance community that will send me a message and say, well, I want to do Ironman. And I'm like, well, you haven't done a triathlon before. And you want to take on the hardest triathlon possible. Like,
baby steps.
like let's go for a run.
Yeah.
let's buy a bike. Let's go for a swim. You know, you got to swim 100 yards before you can swim 2.5 miles.
That's perspective.
You know, but it is. And, you know, so a lot of that stuff is because people are they want that instant gratification. And life is not instant gratification.
Like, oh, I want $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, what's it take to get $1 million?
Right.
Or what's it take to live a healthy lifestyle?
Right. And I mean, and that's a perfect example that you could tell someone like, you know, what do you want to retire with? Like, what are you going to, you ask a lot of people, it's like, oh, what's your retirement plan? Most people are like, yeah, I don't have one. And it's like, well, what are you going to do?
And why do you want to retire
Right.
if you don't know what to do?
Like are you going to work for the rest of your life? I mean, I don't have a ton lined up for retirement, but I have a plan, and I'm always taking those steps to work towards it. And it's like, even things like your nutrition, like you should always take those steps so that you're always, every day you should be moving forward. You might be moving 1 step forward some days, you might be moving forward 10 steps. But every day you should be moving forward in some aspect of your life, making your life slightly better than it was yesterday. And if you're doing that, and, whether you do that, maybe you eliminate 1 sugary snack per month. Well, that's 1 less sugary snack than you had last month. And I start there with clients. I have a guy that for breakfast, he would eat, soda and a bag of chips. And I was like, I didn't care about the rest of his day, what he ate. I said, but starting tomorrow, I want you to have, this is what I want you to have for breakfast. And we changed up his breakfast. And he's like, that's it? I'm like, well, if it's that simple, why haven't you been doing it? And he's like, fair enough, I'll do it. In the first week, he lost 6 pounds.
No.
A lot of that's going to be water. But still, he goes, I haven't changed anything other than eating like a real breakfast, and I lost 6 pounds. He goes, we changed my lunch? I'm like, that's where we're going. But I had to create that habit of him getting up 5 minutes earlier so that he could make his breakfast and stick to that. And then it was like, great, we've made that change. Now let's change. Let's get you, let's get your lunch figured out. Cleaned up his lunch significantly. And, a month later, he's down 15.5 pounds of body fat, 20 pounds in the last month and a half. And he's like, I can't believe all we've done is changed my breakfast and my lunch. He goes, I still eat like crap for dinner. And he goes, I eat less crap because now my wife and I are thinking about it more. And I'm like, there we go.
And that's a switch.
That's
just turned on.
Exactly. But it was, because if he walks in and I say, okay, great, starting tomorrow, you're going to eat organic strawberries for breakfast with some organic oatmeal and, egg whites, and you're going to do this for lunch, he would have...
It's too much.
He would have shut down. Or he would have done it for a week and been like, this is too much. So we make a small, manageable change, then another one, then another one. Now, the guy's, I think he's 25 pounds of body fat down.
Wow.
In the last 2 months total. So
it's a habit change. It's not just changing the food, but the routine of the day.
Yeah, we're changing, your life.
Yeah.
And,
for sure.
Changing the habits that you do daily. He even started just walking on his own. He was like, if I'm gonna commit to the food side, I should do something on the physical activity side. And I said, start with walking. I go, when was the last time you walked around the block? And he goes, oh, I think before my wife got pregnant and my oldest son just graduated college 3 years ago. And I'm like, that's about 20 years. I'm like, that's a long time to have not walked around your block. And, but again, take 10 minutes, go for a 10-minute walk every day. And once you can do that and you can see that you're successful, go for a 12-minute walk. It's about giving yourself those little victories too. Because if you're always setting that bar, I got to run a half marathon. Well, and then you fail because you get hurt in training.
Was he the one that wanted to run the half marathon?
No. He's got cancer, and his doctor told him, it's not spreading, so they're just, monitoring it. Okay. But his doctor said, you should definitely lose some weight. And he's like, I can't wait to go back to the doctors. He goes, now that what I've been eating, so it's a very anti-inflammatory diet, and he's done amazing, and he sees his doctor. I think he sees his doctor this week, the first week of April. So it'll be exciting to see, he'll be 30 pounds down by then probably. So to have, and again, that's another victory. So positioning people to have small steps and small bouts of success along the way is critical, so there's a lot that goes into, that goes into and out of my mind when it comes to trying to help people, because it's not, food is, it starts with that and then it expands outward.
So you're saying how your mind works is you always question things.
Yeah.
And you said one of the most important things is having a clear why. So asking you, what is your why that keeps you going?
There's, I have different whys. So one of my whys from a personal standpoint is I want to live the healthiest life that I can, so that I can be a positive role model for my kids. I can live as long as possible, and I can play with my kids as long as possible. And so from that standpoint, like my personal why and my work why, you could say, align very closely to each other in that, from a work standpoint, like with nutrition and with ultimate health and performance, my why is I want to educate people and I want to help as many people as possible because I understand how much misinformation is out there. There's misinformation out there that there's just so much of it. And I want to help people navigate that stream to be able to show them like anybody can do it. In a sense, it's not rocket science. Yes, it is science, but it's not rocket science. We can figure it out. It's going to take a little bit of work on your end. It's going to take some work on my end to make sure that we've got the best plan. Mm-hmm. But my why is to truly, like, I want to help as many people and educate as many people as I humanly can while still providing like a very high level of personal relationship with them. And yeah, the quality will be there just because I want to have very high touch areas where, I'm working with someone one-on-one allows that a lot more than if I have a group of 30 people in a room and I'm like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing today.
Okay. Quality over quantity.
Yeah. So I, very high touch, but, my why is, I think I wrote it out one time to try to make it very formal. It's like to create and instill as much education as possible through nutrition and physical activity to give you the best possible life. In a nutshell, I want to teach you as much as I possibly can in the field of fitness and nutrition so that you can then go on and live your best life. And if I can do that, then to me, that's a job well done. For some people, that's very quick. For others, I'll have them for clients for a long time because they're just a little stubborn.
And what do you do at that point?
I'm totally fine with telling clients, like my friend who wants to work, who wants some nutrition coaching, if they're not committed to the process, I don't want people to just give me their money and be like, I'll get my shit together eventually. No, I want to help you. And if you don't want to help you, then don't continue to see me because you're not ready to be helped. You can't go find one of the homeless guys on the street and take him in, give him your house and your home as a place and a shower and try to help him get a job if he wants to be homeless. Like, you just can't. So you have to take someone who they have to be ready and committed to the process in order for it to work. And if they're not, then they're not. And that doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that they're not, and especially if you try to work them through that and they still, like, they're still struggling and they're still not committing to the process, then, it's like, okay, well, we've run 20 different scenarios to try to help you get through this and you just aren't ready. And that's fine. That's not a bad thing, but take some time because, again, that's just going to lead to a stressor. So if I have a client that I'm thinking of in particular because
the purpose is to empower them.
Right. Right. The purpose is I want to make food a non-stressor in their life. I want to have food become that one thing that they know they can turn to
control in their life.
Yeah, that they can control because they are going to have work stress. They're going to have home stress. They're going to have the stress of going to the grocery store and, all of that. So if we can, make this an event that's not stressful in their life, then they're going to feel better. It might only be a tiny bit. It might not actually be at all, but it's not going to cause them stress. And that's what the goal is. So, you do run into that. And I tell people when that happens, like, it's fine. Take a couple weeks, really sit down and evaluate, like, where are my priorities? Where should my priorities be?
That's huge. Like, I wonder what they find to be important in their life when they're not making the changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's for a lot of people, and that's why I love an exercise that I do with a lot of people of making the change. In going back to that book, Atomic Habits, he talks about James Clear talks about, if you want to make, let's pretend that your habit is that you want to read more instead of watching TV. So you're trying to replace we'll call it a bad habit, even though watching TV isn't necessarily a bad thing. But but reading a book can be a better habit. So you're trying to replace a not as great habit with a better habit. And so you put, your TV remote over, or you put your book over the TV remote. And if that doesn't work, you put more roadblocks in the way of the habit you're trying to break, and you create more avenues to be able to do the habit that you're trying to form. So if you're trying to read more, make it as accessible as possible. Well, that doesn't work. So maybe if you unplug your TV and you have your book on top of the remote, you'll be more likely to read. Or maybe, if that doesn't work, then you say, well, I'm only going to read 2 pages, but I'm going to read 2 pages a day. How long does it take to read 2 pages? I don't know, 90 seconds? So there's no reason that you can't carve out 90 seconds of your day, and then you can watch your TV show. If that doesn't work, again, you're creating more avenues for the habit you're trying to make and putting more roadblocks than the one you're trying to break. So then maybe you take your TV off the wall. Now we're getting extreme, but now in order to watch TV, you'd have to put the TV on the wall, plug it back in, move the book off of the remote just to be able to watch your show. You could have read your 2 pages before you even put the TV back on the wall. So taking steps like that with people, and just, I've had it to the point with clients where I'm like, before you have candy, I want you to send me a text message to let me know. You laugh, and it's crazy.
It works though.
And I've gotten a picture of like the fun size M&Ms from a client, and she's like, I had a shitty day, I want to eat these. And I texted her back, I said, that's fine. You can have those if you can tell me two ways that those are going to help you hit your goal. Because we set very specific goals. So how are those going to help me? She's like, they're not. And I'm like, well then, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, because that's not going to help you get to your goal. And she was like, I hate you. And I was like, you're welcome. Like, and I make the joke all the time. I say, imagine the person who works at Wegmans or Trader Joe's or any grocery store that checks you out. They're mindlessly scanning your groceries. And then if every time you had like junk food or ice cream or candy, something like that, you had to explain to them, so I had a really bad day at work, you're laughing, but it sounds crazy. Yeah. And people always laugh when I tell them, I'm like, but think about it. If you had to explain to them why you want to eat that, they're gonna laugh. Like, I mean, it's crazy. And if someone explained that to you, like if you were walking by someone that and you bumped carts or whatever, and you look down, and people always look in my cart, because especially if they know I'm in food, they're like, oh, what's he got? So I bury all my cakes and everything on the bottom. But, people will look in your cart, and if they looked in your cart and they saw you had ice cream, they'd be like, oh, Kyle, so, why are you buying ice cream? And you had to explain, well, I had a really bad day at work, and I'm, just really stressed, and it's going to make me feel better. And they were like, oh, cool, so that's going to help you get to your goals? You'd be like, here, you take it. Get away from me. It's crazy to think, and that's an extreme variation of a roadblock in the way of the habit we're trying to break.
So that's why it's so important to have a very defined why.
Yeah.
So you know what your goal is, where
exactly.
You're going.
So, going back to that, if you have, like, you sit down and really formulate, like, why is this important? Why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. And then it's just like every day, how am I working towards that? Even if it's as simple as going to the grocery store, but this time I'm not going to buy the fun size M&Ms, because if I don't buy them, I'm not going to fall back and have them. Or if it's, I'm going to walk that 10 minutes a day or 2 minutes a day, whatever it is. Having a formidable reason why you're going to do, why you're committing to the change and why you're committing to that lifestyle is paramount.
Did you have the why when you first started? When
No.
you were doing like the small incremental?
You know what? I did. So I got to take that no back. But I did because I wanted to be a personal trainer.
Oh, true. Okay.
You know, and my why was that I didn't want to be a fat personal trainer. So I knew I had to have a level of fitness before I could do that job. So that would be my why.
And at that point, you were kind of like in the environment, immersed. So probably
Yeah,
gave
I
you the
mean,
motivation to keep
it did.
going.
You know, like reading every chapter, and then, you know, I would read a little bit, and then I would go back through, and it was like, okay, like this is like the more I started to read about personal training, the more I started to think like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. Like this is super informative, super interesting. I could already tell even then, like there's a lot that goes into the human body, and you know, just learning learning all of the bones and all of the muscles was just like, okay, there's, you know, you don't realize how many muscles and bones you have until you have to like draw them out, and then you got to know which ones. It's like, okay, you move your arm, well, what muscles were affected? And you're like, a lot. So, you know, that was, you know, so that got, you know, that kind of changed the way I thought a little bit too. But yeah, that would be my why originally, was, you know, because I wanted to be a trainer.
And the intrigue that you
Yeah.
had for it.
Yep.
Seems like it matches your personality too. You seem very like technical, like you're saying. You're scientific almost about it,
Yeah.
like logical.
Yeah, I am very, it's funny because I'm definitely not OCD about anything that I think of. But I'm very numbers driven. So, you know, like when I was getting my master's in nutrition, I had to take an herbalism class. And I'm not real good with, you know, when we'd make like blends and stuff, they'd say, oh, we'll do 1 part. And I'm like, what's 1 part? Like, is it a quarter cup? Is it an eighth of a cup? Is it? And they're like, just 1 part. And I'm like, 1 part of what? Like,
Yeah.
It needs a definitive number. And they're like, it doesn't. And I'm like, but it does. So, and I always joke around. I'm like, the hardest class I took in getting my master's was herbalism, because I'm very analytical in the way that I think about a lot of stuff. And to have something that was very, like a very casual, it was just kind of like, yeah, it works. And I'm like, no, like
Willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Interesting. What are your thoughts on like the whole Reiki stuff, like spiritual healing? Because that stuff's very like beliefs driven. No numbers really.
Yeah.
Involved.
Next question.
Okay. Fair enough.
No, I
But
don't.
The interesting thing is, the reason why I bring that up is because, okay, we're identifying your personality to be like numbers driven. It's cool how you're able to personalize what you're doing and make it more, you know, about you and evoking your strengths.
Right.
And then creating like a why behind it and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Yeah. I've never had Reiki done, so I can't. Again, I am a very numbers driven person, but I'm also logical in the sense that seeing is believing. So, you know, I mean, even like my thoughts on like God and all of that stuff is just like, you know, I think we all just kind of die and go into the earth, because that's where they put us, you know. And yeah, I'm very practical with a lot of that stuff. And, you know, to me, that, you know, even with like the Reiki, I've never had it done, so I don't know. I've had craniosacral therapy done, and, you know, the first time Melissa was doing it over at Armory Massage, I was so used to like the hard work of massage that as soon as she stopped and she was just holding me, I was just laying there on my back, and I just like popped my eyes open, and I was like, is everything okay? She's like, will you just relax? Because I'm like, what's wrong? Why'd you stop? Because I'm like laying there and I'm like, is there something wrong? Like, did she get a text message? And she's like what? You know, because I'm just thinking, like, I'm so used to, like, the manual therapy. And she's like, this is cranial sacral, just relax. And then I could feel it.
What exactly is that consist of?
I still don't know because I'm always the one on the receiving end of it. But it's something to do with the positioning of your head and then getting, like, the spinal, I believe, like, to get the spinal fluid flowing.
But she doesn't do anything?
She just kind of holds your head in a position.
Oh, okay.
In, you know, any you know. So I still don't know. And that bothers me that I don't know, to some degree. And, you know, but at the same time, like, I could feel that it was working. So I was like, okay. So, like, I've never had Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
So as of right now, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it works.
That's the hardest part, like, for me too, with the holistic kind of healing stuff, is it's so just, some of it's wishy-washy. I'm a numbers guy too, in that sense. Like, if I'm going to make changes in my life and use time and energy to do this kind of stuff, then I want to have hard facts.
Yeah.
At least to an extent, you know?
It should, you know, you want to know that it's quantifiable, to some degree. But, you know, I do think that with some of the holistic, I think that it's a very interesting field. I still love reading about a lot of the holistic medicine and stuff, because it is, you know, like,
there's truth to it.
There's a lot of truth to it.
It's like gravity.
Yeah.
You can't see it until,
yeah,
you know,
until you throw something.
Yeah.
And then it's there. But it's very interesting. I fully embrace it, especially after taking an herbalism class, because we did it's a very holistic based class in, you know, really starting to understand, like, different combinations of herbs in, you know, and how they can react within your body, in then taking that to, you know, let's, you know, use cinnamon. How cinnamon is an amazing anti-inflammatory for your body. And all you got to do is just a teaspoon a couple of times a day, and it'll give you that, it'll help you out. And it'll, you know, same thing with, like, ginger.
Why is there so much controversy then? Because I read about these articles online, and they'll say, oh, these have so many health properties, and then other articles be like, no, not at all. Like,
well, I mean, one of the things that I learned also was there's a lot of misguided research. So if I sell a pharmaceutical drug that is an NSAID, so it's an anti-inflammatory, and it has the same effect on your body from an anti-inflammatory standpoint as cinnamon, which you can get anywhere, I'm not going to make a lot of money. But if I do some research and, you know, modulate the dosing, then all of a sudden I can come out with, like, well, you know, sure, cinnamon does have some anti-inflammatory qualities, but not that good. Or, you know, you can find ways around it. So there's a lot of, especially in the medical field, there's a lot of biased research.
We're humans.
We're human. And I mean, any researcher is going to go in there, and yes, they're going to have somewhat of an open mind, but there's
an agenda.
There's always going to be an agenda, and there's always going to be someone paying for it. And if I'm Coca-Cola and I'm paying for, you know, $10 million worth of research, and your career depends on it, well, I'm probably going to, you know, try to find every angle to make this work for Coca-Cola. Like, I'm not. But, you know, from a researcher standpoint, that's what can happen. So, and that's where I think you can get into, you know, like I had mentioned at the very beginning, about the research that just came out in, I forget what it was. It was in JAMA, one of the, like, major medical publications, that says that a cholesterol under 300 and no more than 3 to 4 eggs a week is acceptable, is what you should aim for. And it's like, well, the study didn't look at physical activity. It didn't look at they were smokers. It didn't look at what their red meat consumption is. It didn't look at how many, vegetables they consumed. It didn't look at any of these factors. Those are all factors that can lead to cardiovascular disease and early death. They didn't look at their sugar consumption. Like, are they drinking soda? Like, you look at one thing that they consume, and then you make this blanket statement. So now America's in an uproar of like, oh, CNN posted the article. See, the facts are out. You should have no more than 3 to 5 eggs a week. For who? Mm-hmm. For you? For me? I have 4 every 3 days, and my cholesterol is, my LDL is like I don't know what it is, like 140. Mm-hmm. Super low. So I don't have a problem.
There's too many factors.
So, but again, that's a real sexy headline though.
Yeah.
3 to 4 eggs a week, that's it. And it's like, well, yeah, if you're a type 2 diabetic who consumes all of this other junk, yep, that's probably right. And you've never exercised a day in your life. But, that's part of the problem with, everything that's out there. And that was actually an article a doctor friend of mine shared in support of. And then one of my clients, doesn't even know that doctor, had text messaged me and said, did you see this on CNN? And I just, I was like, I started laughing. I was like, I did. And we'll talk about it at your appointment.
And that's the thing too, is like if someone does disagree or agree, whatever, it's a very long, in-depth conversation to like explain the argument as to like why.
Yep.
And it's like people might not want to have the time for that, so they'll just go with the headline. Oh, it's bad.
Yep. And that's, my doctor friend. I brought up those points, and and this is a family medical practitioner, so I don't know if she did. She possibly read that article, and then in her practice might have had a patient come in that is, oh, so what are some of your nutrition? What are you? Oh, I have 4 eggs a day. I just read a major medical article that says you should have no more than 3 to 4 eggs per week.
Wow. Not looking at their exercise, sleep. Not
looking at any of these other factors. So when she posted that, I commented on it, and she's like, well, those all play a major role. And I was like, those play a very significant role. Not like a major role. Like, those are the primary driving factors behind. And this study doesn't weed them out at all. And she was like, well, yeah, I guess, that's a valid point. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that to me is someone who's starting to admit defeat without, because, and that's the other part of it, is a lot of people now are afraid to be wrong. I love to be wrong. Because that's
growth.
It's growth. Yeah. It's the best time to learn. You never learn when you're always right. The only thing you learn is you're always right. So when you're proven wrong, and
just might be delusional.
Yeah.
At that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Damn. This is super insightful.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I told Missy when she had said something about it, I was like, because we talk about it, like when I'm getting a massage, we talk about all this stuff. And, it's, to me, it's, life is meant to be fun. And if I can give people a fun life by teaching them to eat cool foods and that are good, that taste good, I always make fun of one of my favorite nutrition professors. The first day of class, she held up a tomato, and she was like, have you ever just stood in your garden and felt the energy of a tomato? And I was like, holy shit, this lady is crazy. Because I'm like,
no, I haven't.
It's tomato. I'm 26. Nope. Never done that. And now looking back, I tell people all the time, I'm like, have you ever tasted an apple as good as the one that you freshly picked off a tree and eaten? No. Because literally, up until the moment that apple got picked, it was getting pumped nutrients. And then you picked it and then took a bite out of it.
And that could be the energy she's talking about with the
tomato. And that is the energy she's talking about. Until the moment you picked that tomato, it was getting energy, whether it was from the sun, whether it was nutrients coming up the stalk, like it was getting energy. And like I've started to think about that stuff a lot more, and it's, you know, I always laugh because everybody I tell that story to, you know, everybody laughs because it's crazy. I'm like, that's crazy. Who's ever going to stand in their garden and think that except her? But then you think, like, then you step back and you're like, oh yeah, it was. And that's the cool thing with food is, you know, fruits and vegetables are, you know, and even, you know, meat, you know, if you, you know, maybe not like mass market meats, but, you know, game meat, stuff like that, is getting nutrients and is like a living,
most
you know,
natural state.
Yeah, in its most natural state. And if I can help people learn to navigate those murky waters and then educate them on some other ideas and beliefs that I have that will help them live a better life, and then they can turn around and implement that and possibly share that, that's awesome. I mean, that's, you know, that is, to me, that is one of like the cornerstones of living a great life is to, you know, you want to help your neighbor. You don't want to knock your neighbor down. You know, if you see someone fall outside, our natural instinct is to look, and it should be to help them back up, not to like go over and like kick them, you know. And if we can, you know, if do that in a different way, then, you know, yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, live
You
a
know.
life of service.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
To go back a little bit, it's interesting hearing like the different beliefs with the teacher, and she was talking about like the spiritual energy and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like you were able to somewhat agree in this roundabout sense, even though you're coming from a different perspective, and she might be coming from this more like just different beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's like, I always try to think like, what do people value? What's important to them? Why do they believe what they believe? Because I think there is some truth that we all have. There's like this like, I don't know, thread or something that kind of links all of our ideas. And I mean, we might be just focusing on the wrong things, being the differences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tearing our country apart or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I think that, yeah, I mean, you know, I think that there's a big, I think that people in general, I think everybody is a good person in general. I mean, even people that are in prisons and stuff.
They want the best.
There is a level of good in everybody, and it's just a matter of, like, you just have to, like, they might not know what it is. So they might turn to gangs and violence and because they don't, you know, they're lost. Like they don't know, you know, they didn't come up in the same environment we came up in. And even my professor, like, yeah, she was super holistic. And she was very non-numbers driven, in someone that I probably should have clashed with, but we had that common belief of, I understood what she was getting at. Like, I don't know. I pick a tomato every year. I don't feel the energy because there is no energy to me because it's not a tangible. But there's nutrients, and I know that there's nutrients, and
there's calories.
There's calories, you know, and calories are a form of energy, you know. So we both believe the same thing in that the tomato, in this case, is providing us with, you know, that balance that we're looking for, and it's providing us with you know, a source of energy.
And maybe the more emotional side of it,
right?
Resonated with her,
yeah,
as opposed to you with numbers and logic.
Right. Yep. And you know, and that's, you know, and I get that, and I respect it. Like, I would never, you know, like I always say, like, you know, again, I love when someone can, when I can learn something new, and I learn a lot from people like her, and even, you know, like the professors I had.
You're saying when you clash a little bit?
Yeah, because again, I can use that as an opportunity for growth, right? Like, even if, whether, if we took it to like the political arena, I don't watch TV at all. So I literally, I don't know. I don't know anything that goes on in the news. But I love when I can sit in a room and hear a Democrat and a Republican, because I don't have, I have my own views, but I don't, like, I'm not, super political. And, so then I can hear, or if I can watch CNN and then turn around and watch Fox, I know they're both, lying to me to some degree. But if I can sit there and listen to both sides and be like, oh, cool, this idea is mine.
Kind of formulate your own personal set of ideology.
Versus, oh, well, I'm a Democrat, so I have to, whichever news channel, CNN is more Democratic, I think. I don't know.
CNN's a liberal.
Liberal, yeah.
Fox is Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if I'm Democratic and I, watch CNN, or if I'm, a Republican and I watch Fox, like, none of that stuff matters to me, because I'm going to sit there, I'm going to hear it, and I'm going to be like, yeah, there's probably some truth on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And people, now we use, events, like the elections and stuff to polarize the country and to tear people apart, when, really if your neighbor is a Republican and you're a Democrat, like, up until last year or however long Trump's been in office, you guys were probably great neighbors.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, like, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do believe that we all have like a common thread that, of beliefs that all of us share. And I think that
we're all human.
We're all human. And I think that, a lot of times you'll find people will, I think that, they get lost in the drama. And if we could eliminate the noise, and, like, I always think, and one day I'm going to do it, where I'm going to take a group of my clients who struggle with a super busy life and do a retreat, like a full-on, like, week-long retreat, like a technology-free retreat. And I've talked to a couple of them about it, and they're like, that's an awesome idea. But I'm talking, and I can tell this to clients who are executives. I can talk to people, clients who are college kids, and, so you're talking every different demographic possible: Republican, Democrat, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. And they're all like, I think that's an awesome idea. That would be so fun. Because the concept of going back to the very beginning and restarting from the ground up, of like, we're 20 people who have completely different careers and lives and belief systems, but we all have one belief, really, at the core, is that we want to be awesome people. Like, everybody wants to help their neighbor. Everybody wants to, be a good human. And
you're doing that through food?
Yeah. I do it through Ultimate Health Performance. I do it through nutrition, through coaching, through personal training, through, just, I try to do it through, in some degree, philosophy with my clients of, movement practice, nutrition practice, combining things together to try to help them live a better life. I want to do it with this retreat that we've talked about, going up into like the Adirondacks for a week and just unplugging them and being like, I'll provide the food. Every day we'll go for a walk. Every day you guys just kind of like recenter yourself and then go back to the real world. And, because you always hear about people who hike like the Appalachian Trail, and, that's like a 3-month thing, or 6 months. And, they come out of it and they're a completely transformed person. And a friend of mine did it. He was an executive in Philadelphia when we lived there. And, he was managing a gym, and just one day up and quit.
Wow.
And I was like, where are you going? He goes, well, I've been thinking about doing it for a while, but I'm leaving in a week to hike the Appalachian Trail. I was like,
wow.
Okay. And when he got back, he's to this day totally different human being.
In what way? He's
better. Like, you spend 20 24 hours a day by yourself, and then you meet people along the trail that, don't have a pot to piss in, and they take you into their home and they feed you, and, they give you a place to sleep when it's raining. Wow. And you learn, like, there are great people who don't have anything, and then there are great people who have everything. But when you're out there, you're nobody. No one cares. Like, the person that you run into along the trail, like him and I have talked about it a lot. The person you run into along the trail, like, they don't care that you worked, as
you're all equals at that point.
You're just another person out there trying to make it. And if so he, it made him a better human being, because he appreciates people, and he appreciates things a lot more. Things that, he's become,
it's like more mindful about the things he does.
Yeah. I mean, his life is definitely a lot more mindful than it was. So, I think about that stuff a lot, because I think that is, like, at the core of it, I think that's what we all go back to is,
how can we be the best human being?
Yeah. How can we live optimally? How can we live our ultimate life?
You said optimally. Life. That kind of lends itself to the more logical side of things, and that could be like speaking to your personality.
Yeah. I think that life optimized is, and that's, I originally when Ultimate Health and Performance was birthing, I always tried to find out, how I could implement optimized, because to me that is like live optimally, life optimized is something that I always say to people, because that's giving you that best, you're living your best life at that point. And how can I help you get there?
So the way you're doing it is maybe through the numbers, or like through
the numbers.
What you consider optimization.
Yeah.
So what would you consider optimization?
I personally do it through optimizing people's nutrition and their personal training. So from that standpoint, that's where I feel I'm able to help people live optimally, and
that's the end goal, to help people,
and then I have a network of people that I will recommend. Like, if someone comes in and, we dial in their nutrition, we dial in their personal training, well, they might need chiropractic care. I have chiropractors that I recommend to people. I have massage therapists that I recommend to people. I have, I'm trying to build this network of people that, physical therapists, even some doctors that are more open-minded to more of a natural way, to be able to help, because that is, that's what's most important. If you come to me and, we work on your nutrition and we work on your training, and then you're like, oh, but, my neck is always sore, and it's like, oh, well, a good friend of mine is a chiropractor. Go see him, or go see this physical therapist, and then go see. I'm giving you every tool to live optimally. And that's like people like Missy, and, people like, Barrett Parker,
So, like, your why would be, at the end of the day, to help people.
Yep.
And maybe someone else, their end goal is to help people. And the way that they might do that by helping people might differ. Exactly. And maybe that's what we're focusing on. But is the differences as to how we're doing it. The same thing with, like, the political debate. How they go about helping people. But maybe the common thread between that is
why do you do this podcast?
To help people.
There you go.
Give people a voice.
Right. So,
but my how is different than your how.
Right.
And I could sit here and argue and say, oh, podcasting is the best way to help people, and you could argue back.
Yeah. And that's exactly it is, and that's why I think at the root of everything, people, human beings, they want to, that's when you look back, we're nomadic people. So that means that we were together in tribes, moving from place to place. Well, how can you do that if you aren't going to help the person next to you?
And what's the point?
Right? So, I mean, goes back to when I said, if you see someone fall down outside, our natural instinct should be to help them, not to kick them. But now we live in this like area where, people are afraid to do that. I find that through nutrition and, coaching and through, my way of doing it, I'm able to help. But again, that I'm only one piece of that puzzle. We're looking at a puzzle that's got many pieces.
In terms of your business?
Well, just, I know in terms of your, if you were my client and I'm only a piece of your life.
I go see my doctor, massage therapist, chiro.
Right. So, and if everybody is in place to help you, now all of a sudden, all of those pieces start lining up. One, it's going to lower your stress. Two, you're going to start moving better. You're going to start feeling better. You're going to start eating better. You're going to start living better. Like, again, like I think I brought it up earlier with, if you had a piece of cake and threw up, you'd never eat a piece of cake again. If you just are constantly inundated with like a success after success, you're going to want to keep doing whatever you're doing because it's working. So if, all of a sudden you start feeling like you wake up and you're like, man, I feel great when I get out of bed and I got tons of energy and, my acne is gone and my hormones are regulated and like so much positive is happening around you, well, then you're going to want to keep doing that. And if I get to play a part in that and help in any way with that, then I want to keep doing what I'm doing because I'm helping. And there's nothing more gratifying than having, one of my clients wrote an email to me, and she was like, I'm so thankful for all that you've done. You've truly changed my life. And to hear that from a client who is, in her late 30s and she's done other things in the past, like nutrition challenges and, worked with other nutritionists in the past. But to hear that is just like, hell yeah. Like that's why I do it because I got to help.
Makes it all worth it.
I got to help someone who has been helped in the past, but I helped them a little bit more. And they, and still to this day, she's still living, breathing, doing what the recommendations that I've made for her. And I'm like, there's nothing, that's the best feeling in the world when you're and that's in the service environment, is to be able to know that the help that I offered for someone, they utilized, and it truly changed their life. Like, I read that, and, like, I still think about that email all the time, and I'm like, that's exactly why, that's why I do it. Like, that's, same thing. If someone, comments on, on your podcast and leaves you a 5-star review and was like, thank you so much, that was super insightful, you're like, hell yeah, that's how it's supposed to be done. Like, that's what I want, because that means you did a job well done. Well, you're going to want to do that again.
It's motivation.
Yeah.
Keeps you going.
You're not going to want to be like, that's good. I'm just going to no. It's going to drive you. It's going to motivate you to continue to push yourself. So that's, that's where I, how I feel on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So to wrap this up a little bit, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. For sure.
So grateful to have you on.
Yeah, man, I'm glad Missy said something originally, and then you reached out because definitely I think it's the more we can help people, like at the end of the day, it's awesome.
It's about being human.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the last question. What does it mean to be human?
Ooh.
For you personally?
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about, being a good person. I think to be human means you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make huge mistakes. But recognizing the mistakes made and formulating a plan to move forward and, being genuine, like being real and, giving back more, giving more than you receive. I think that's what makes us human. Like, because we're supposed to make mistakes, because I think like
we're the ones that label it a mistake too.
Right. Like my mistake, you might be like,
I wish that happened to me.
I wish I had that. You see the guys that'll lose like $400,000 in one day on the stock market, and they're like, God, today was such a mistake. And it's like, yeah, no, I mean, I'd be cool doing that. Like, can I have 400,000 to lose? Like, but making mistakes so that we can grow from it and improve, and then but I guess the other part of that is that we improve. Not just continually making the same mistake and thinking about it and processing how we can improve on it. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would say is to be human, in, constant evolution, constantly being, striving to be a little bit better than we were the day before, and continually growing.
Hey, glad to have you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Ed Teneyck. You can follow him on.
Oh, man, I'm always bad with this. All right, Instagram is at Ed_Teneyck. Ultimate Health and Performance is at Ultimate Health and Performance, all one word, obviously, on Instagram. Post a lot of like recipe stuff on there. If I ever post a recipe, that means that we've tried it and it's good. The recipes that taste like crap don't make the cut. Because I figure if I can't stomach it, I don't expect anyone else to.
That's on your website?
Yep, it's on the website, ultimate-health.net, as well as Instagram. Personal Instagram is Ed_Teneyck, and then Facebook is just Ed Teneyck, and then Ultimate Health and Performance is my other one. So yeah, go over there.
Check them out.
Yeah, let me know what's on here.
Thank you again, Ed, for being on the show. It was really awesome to hear your story, and I'm really glad to hear that sounds like you're really living your best life right now. Ed plugged all of his social pages and website. Definitely go check that stuff out. Super meaningful and mindful content that I think, as he was saying before, it's really going to make you see life in a different lens, and I think it's a very positive lens. So thank you again for Ed and that really, really insightful conversation with you and Kyle. If you haven't already, give this podcast a subscribe, tell your friends about it. Really like it if you could take the chance and give it a review. It's as simple as going down and clicking on those 5 stars, or even writing just a little blurb about what you like about the podcast. This just helps us see that engagement from you guys, and also is going to help us show up organically for people who are looking for a new podcast to listen to. We would really enjoy hitting some new audience members, so if you get a chance, it's super helpful for us and it's much appreciated. If you're new to all things Bindlism and Boho Hobo, you can find us at boho_hobo_ for Instagram and Twitter, and then Boho Hobo for Facebook and YouTube. And our website is bohohobolifestyle.com. You can find everything from our blog, vlog, podcast episodes, and our merchandise all located on our website. So go check that stuff out if you're interested and you want to know more about what we're all about. We'll see you next episode on Bindlism, a philosophy to a self-sufficient lifestyle. Hope you have a great rest of your day, week, weekend, whenever you're listening to this. Good vibes to all, and as always, keep it real.